Tell us what it has been like for you in terms of the introduction of the close season. I know this particular year's own is currently in place. Yes, so tell us about it.
Well, thanks, Kennedy. Fishing closure or moratorium is basically one of the many measures, what we say conservation measures, prescribed by law that the minister may impose as part of measures to ensure that the fisheries stocks are maintained.
Yeah.
Because I'm not a fisheries scientist, I'll try to speak more like a fisherman. Because when we talk about fish stocks, we are basically talking about particular species within a community or a population of fisheries. And so for these particular closed seasons, the focus had generally been on what we call the small pelagic. And the small pelagic are we have the demersals, which are bottom fish like the red snappers, what the Ghanaians call chile, the groupers and the likes. And then we have big pelagics like tuna. And then we have small pelagic like the sardinella and then the mackerel. And we have some of them call them semi-pelagic like the carangis, the horse mackerel, and those types. So the close season is focused on the small pelagic, particularly the sardinella stocks that are believed to be declining in terms of stocks.
Yeah.
The assumption is that we've gotten to a point where the stocks are virtually breaking. And so it's one of the conservation measures that generally happens.
Yeah.
This measure generally is focused on doing two things. We have what we call growth overfishing and recruitment overfishing.
Okay, growth overfishing.
And recruitment overfishing.
Okay.
When we say growth overfishing, what we are basically saying is that, you see, the fish need to grow to a point and before you could harvest them. Particularly for the pelagic, the sardinella, they need to spawn. When we say they need to spawn, they need to lay eggs and have sperm shed on them so that they can have babies.
Yes.
Now, when they do that, then you have recruitment into the fishery.
Right.
Because once they spawn, then there's recruitment into the fishery.
Right.
So when you have a closure, what you are basically trying to prevent people from fishing the young ones that have been recruited into the system, and also to prevent you from fishing fish that are supposed to grow.
Right.
So basically, that is what it does. It doesn't resolve all the challenges that comes with the fish decline. Because you see, you have issues with environmental factors, which will not be dealt with by closed season. Okay. And you also have issues to do with the climate change that we are experiencing now. And then there's a third one, which is capacity. Because when you have excess capacity, and when we say you have excess capacity, the excess capacity results in excess effort. Now, for instance, Ghana has close to 15,000 canoes, and we are supposed to have about 9,000. It means you have excess capacity in there. You are supposed to have up to about 60 or 70 trawlers.
Right.
If you have about 7,500 trawlers, you have excess capacity.
Yeah.
Now, so there are capacity challenges. And one way of resolving the capacity challenge is to have periodic closure. So you allow the fish to have some freedom.
Right.
Or you probably may have to have a quota system. But a closed season doesn't resolve the quota issue. And because there are a number of factors, the closed season in itself is not a panacea to resolving the myriad of challenges that is bedeviling our fishery sector currently.
Right.
It only tries to deal with one issue and to ameliorate that problem that comes with the issue of recruitment overfishing and growth overfishing. But where did the closed season issue come from? In 2015, I humbly led a team of trawl owners.
Right.
Then I was the executive secretary to Rhode Island for a study tour.
Right.
And we need to resolve to do a few things right, because at the time the trawlers were doing too many things wrong. And one of the things we decided to do was to institute the close season.
Okay.
So in 2016 November, the trawl sector had the first closure. Then January, February, they had the second closure. But there was a challenge as to the timing. So the trawlers were having their closure even before the canoe people were introduced into the system. Now, from the scientific and technical working group, the report they had was that between July, August, September, the small pelagic, which was the target, were spawning. Now, if they were spawning...
That means they were recruiting.
They were recruiting.
Yes.
Then, you need to allow the mothers to lay their eggs. So you don't have to harvest them at the time that they were gravid, when they were pregnant. So you need to allow them to spawn. Then when they spawn, you need to allow the fingerlings, the juvenile, to now migrate into safer areas, so you can then focus on...
When you say spawn, it's S-P-A-W-N?
S-P-A-W-N, yeah.
Okay, all right.
So you could allow the mothers to now move into wild, then they can be harvested, because they have spawned, at least a fish must spawn once.
Yeah.
And when the sardinella spawns, according to scientists, you have about 50,000 to 60,000 fingerlings.
Just one?
Just one spawning.
Wow.
So it means that so you see, when you take the eggs in the fish...
And mostly, no, before you continue with the eggs and whatever, mostly, what's the survival rate of the 50,000 or 60,000 fingerlings that
well, I wouldn't be here to guess,
right.
But there are a number of factors.
Wow.
There are climatic factors. For instance, the tuna feeds on the small pelagic, so there are predators that predate on them.
Right.
And so you have fishermen who would fish. So they are exposed to a number of dangers.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that is nature.
Right.
So you don't expect that all of them will survive.
Yeah.
But definitely, so you allow as many as possible that can spawn to spawn, so that those that will survive in the system and then be recruited, and then they will go through the cycle, then they come back. Now, you have two major upwellings. And when, in the layman point of view, when we say upwelling, it means that the temperature of the water has variation.
Right.
Now, we are getting into August, and it's getting cold. What it means that the surface of the water becomes colder. And since cold water is heavier than warm water, when it is becoming colder, then the cold water will now move down, and then the warm water will come up. Now, when the warm water is coming up, because it's turning, it also comes out with what the scientists call the phytoplanktons and the food and everything.
Right.
And so the fish will then follow them, and then it will move by current. So as it moves by current, the fish will follow them from where they are. And so they'll be following the food, they'll be following the current, and then they may be getting closer to shore, and they'll be on the surface, so it becomes possible for the fishermen to sight them and now fish for them. So we have a major upwelling, which is between July, August, and September. And so that's where you normally would have the bumper harvest.
Right.
And then you have a minor upwelling around January, February, March, thereabout.
Right.
So you have two upwellings. Now, the challenge is that it is around this major upwelling that the fish also spawns. And so you have a tussle now asking fishermen not to fish when it is a major upwelling, when they are supposed to make money.
Right.
Because you also believe that that is the time to now protect the gravid and to protect the juvenile, and to ensure that you don't engage in growth overfishing. So that is the major challenge we have now with the closure. Because now we say, okay, no canoe should fish around this time, but this is the time they also make money. So basically, closed season is a conservation tool that says that nobody should fish within a specific area or within the entire zone. And when that happens, it is meant to preserve the resources. Now, there are two types of closures in Ghana.
Yeah.